things over here, fiscal notes. Does anybody know? Cost implications is an excellent way to put it. These changes to this bill has what cost implications? And that's the answer right there. And the guy that writes the legislation doesn't do that. There's a whole special committee that figures out how much this is costing. If that has anything to say other than zero, the chances of passage is slim. Understand, if you're going to change the rules in Texas under our current situation, that if you submit changes to a bill that will induce force costs to the current legislature, the chances of it getting passed are pretty slim. If it'll reduce current costs, you might get it passed. If it leaves it where it is, you may have a chance. For instance, if the cost is borne by the citizenship, it doesn't cost them anything. This is what is it going to cost the state of Texas taxpayers?
Right, to implement it, but it does not. But what not figured into that is the downside from, you know, the actual cost. You see
I understand where you're coming from.
Right.
If we, there could be major implications.
There are.
You know, if in fact we don't implement this,
There are.
the cost could be huge. That's not part of the fiscal notes.
Right.
Those fiscal notes simply mean to implement this procedure that you're asking to change. What will it cost us? Well, you and I would love to tell them it'll. All right, so we're looked up Texas statutes. When we go to Texas statutes, this is where we come. Constitution and statute. And this is what you get to choose from. Right? This is not exactly user interface. And what was we were looking up citizenship, and where did we find it? In what? Election code. Right? Remember 13, it said election code. So there it is, election code. I'm going to select election code. That's not too hard to do. And you notice there are a whole bunch of areas, and you can get stuck in there today. It happened to be 13 something or other, right? So I'm going up, and now I'm calling it Chapter 13. And it happens to be titled Application for Registration, right? And then this guy down here, the article in section was 071. So there I am, section 13.071. That's what 1360 referenced. Do you recall? Yes. So now I said, to remind you where we are, I've seen the changes you've asked for. What are you coming from? What did it used to be? So I'm looking up the current stuff. If I find something, it shouldn't have a bunch of lines in it. It doesn't. Why? There's 13.071. Application. This is the entire 13.071. There is nothing else in 13.071. That's it. Remember how long ours was? It was 3 screenshots. Review it. The register shall review each submitted application to determine whether it complies with 13.02. I bolted that and added it to my reference list, and indicates the applicant is eligible for registration. Wow, we've got tough laws, don't we? Well, that depends what 13.02 says. It goes on to say the registrar shall make the determination within 7 days of the darn thing being filed. So you people that work in the elections business, that is, you're a judge or an alternate, you take registration, people come in and they're not, so you submit. This is what's going to happen. It's going to your elections department. They're going to look at it, find out what they can about it, send it off to Austin. The whole database for certified voters, registered voters, is in Austin, and they'll decide down there. Yes, sir.
Do we need to also check to see what the elections office does with the form that's turned into them to determine that I am indeed a citizen of the United States?
Dennis, we have yet to determine if you have to be a citizen of the state of Texas. We haven't seen that. All we've seen...
Well, I understand that. No, I'm just saying that, okay, we're talking about voter voter ID.
Yeah.
Okay, and verifying that. Okay, and all of this talks about is that you have to be a citizen. Even the new change doesn't say how you verify that.
Actually, it did. It talked about the birth certificate,
I understand. Now,
driver's
if I don't have a birth
license,
certificate,
right?
if
Yeah.
I don't have a birth certificate, but I got a driver's license. Now, does the DMV ever check to see that I'm a citizen of the United States? Okay,
Hang on, right there, hang on to that. The question that, Dennis, please bear with me on this. The question that Dennis is dealing with is directly related in a few slides down. If you'll give me, if I skip it, I'll take it right there. But I'm headed to it, right? So far, I'm trying to figure out where it is we are. So it says, look in 1302, and the registrar gets to do that. Font gets smaller. 1302 is a little bit longer, but not much. Notice it ends right here. There's not a whole lot in the election code. Amazing. The current election code that we're under. So the current election code says that the registrar determines the application, determines that the application complies with what I'm about to say. For an applicant who is not included in the statement described, and then we got to look at this stuff, and it talks about the applicant's Texas driver's license number or number of personal identification must be included, issued by the Department of Public Safety, the last 4 digits of the applicant's social security number, or after approval of an application by an applicant who is registered with another county, and how all that takes place, and whether or not the written notice comes in. And it goes on to talk about the registrar shall forward the application to the other county's registrar, which is a process that those of you that have participated as election judges have figured out doesn't occur regularly. I need to share with you one thing. One thing that Cindy and I have been doing as election judges, I happen to be a person that writes databases. Right? That's what I do for a living. So I am familiar with large hunks of data. I happen to go by the election file, unless I get a candidate to contribute. And during election periods, they'll oftentimes contribute to a new file. That file changes every time there's an election, and anytime Austin sends them up. So I maintain 440,000 voters in Collin County. And I look at the file. And since I know how to do databases, I find out that we have 10 people or more living in hundreds or many homes in Collin County in the same address. And then I go and say, well, what's the address? And it says 123 Main Street. So I go to Google, Chrome, or whatever it is, and I say, show me, 123 Main Street. The sucker's a little wood shack. We got 10 families living in there. So I go to the voter registrar, Chief Sharon Rowe in Collin County. I said, these guys all live at the same place. I think we got a problem. Will you verify they live there? Folks, I don't have the authority to do it. It turns out that as citizens, we can't make that change.
We can't?
We can't request it.
Because
They
there's
won't do it.
binding legislation.
Why we can't do it? Because it's not in the law.
Right.
Therefore, that's why I'm looking into this situation, because I can do that. I can check this out. And these guys look screwy. We have a huge pile of people in Collin County, which is a wonderful place to live, that are over 112 years old. And they're,
That's because they have what's 2,000.
and we have a large number of people in Collin County that are in their 800s. That's no, that's his age. 800? Yeah, they're over 800 years old. The point of the matter is, obviously, those people aren't going out to dinner every night But there's an error somewhere in the file, right? And, or the person entering. And so we need to have the ability to get that stuff fixed. Because if you and I are sitting there as an election judge, and in comes Susie, and she's supposed to be 865, we know we got a problem. Right? And that shouldn't exist. So I want to change the
So the voter registrar in Collin County, if she was empowered by the legislature to fix things, she would do it.
Let's talk about Sharon Rowe.
Question.
Sharon Rowe and I happen to know each other quite well. And for 2.5 years, she responded to all my requests. She's stopped responding. She used to say, and look up each one of those and then tell me what the situation was, right? Well, that's really his sister or the brother or son or so on and so forth. When I questioned all of these, I would go through the commissioner's court and go through Sharon Rowe and normally got a response. Things have been a little busy at the election office and she's not currently responding. That's not the point. What the point is that you and I, if we find that to be an error, ought to get it corrected. We ought to have a means to get it corrected. Yes, did you agree? Yes, ma'am. You have a question?
All right. True to vote, that's what they're doing. Is
Not quite. True to vote's going about it a little different.
Well, what they're doing is getting 2 kids or getting like, oh, there's 10 families that live in Walmart, whatever.
Right.
Then they send it to the local, whatever county you're in. Then it's up to the county to send it to the state. And then the state sends some kind of a form to them and say, this has to be back in 30 days or we cannot vote.
That's right. That's called verifying registration. So a letter is sent to that address, the letter doesn't come back. You know what happens?
You can't vote.
There's a field in the database that has an A, right by your name. And that A means you're active, right? But this lady over here, right, got, because of that letter, and she just threw it in the trash can, that A changes to an S. And that's called, that person is suspended. And then what happens is Cindy and I are doing an election and in comes Miss Suspended. So at the election, I bring up Miss Suspended, right? And she comes up and what it says is we need address verification. So I give Miss Suspended a little card to fill out as the election judge. She fills it out, she signs it, she gives it back to me. And then she either votes on the machine or she votes in one of the other methods that are available. The status got changed to an S. That's all that happened.
So she'll have to vote provisionally if she goes in to vote.
Right. But the fact of the matter is that was the extent of our request for these 10 people that live in a 900 square foot house.
Use the power of petition with your 1,300 members to get the county forced to do something to correct it. And then also, what about cross-referencing when they love to take what I call the comprehensive compound view, where they take a bill and open it, but then they attach several subsets to it in order to get it passed.
Yeah, if we get a chance, we'll talk about that. There's right. That's part of the